Hello everyone, it's such a pleasure to see you again on the channel today. In this video, I will continue bringing you the next part of the heartfelt story about the single mother, Lythieuca. In the previous episode, as you all know, Hung, the devoted husband and father, was suddenly ambushed and attacked by criminals, leaving him severely injured and hospitalized in critical condition. At that fragile moment between life and death, he was fortunate enough to be discovered by a kind stranger who rushed him to the hospital in time. Thanks to that, Hung's life was saved. However, the road ahead is still filled with challenges. Will Hung regain consciousness soon after this long coma? When he wakes up, will he still remember everything, remember Hoai and their little child who longs for him day and night? And Hoai, the petite yet strong-willed woman, how will she face the news of her husband's accident while she continues to shoulder countless hardships in their rural home? All of this will gradually unfold in the next part of today's story. I invite you to watch the full video so you won't miss a single detail. And don't forget to leave a comment and send your encouragement to Hoai and Hung's little family. In the previous episode, after leaving the meeting at the commune office, Hung quietly made his way along the familiar dirt road leading home. In the late afternoon, the fading sunlight streamed through the treetops, scattering shadows across the rugged ground. The slope at the end of the village, peaceful for so many years, now hid an unforeseen danger. Concealed behind the bushes and trees, a gang of smugglers had set up an ambush. They had long held a grudge against Hung, who had time and again disrupted their illegal transport schemes, costing them heavily. Waiting for the moment he walked by alone, they sprang out like wild beasts. The pounding of footsteps, the sharp clash of sticks, all echoed through the air. Hung swiftly drew his baton, his cold eyes flashing as his body twisted and turned in quick succession. Dodging and countering, every strike was firm and precise, revealing the grit and skill of a seasoned policeman. But his enemies were too many, and they had come prepared. Though he fought back with determination, he was soon pushed into a corner. A sudden heavy blow to his temple from behind sent him staggering. Blood gushed from the wound, running down his cheek and splattering onto the earth below. His body grew heavy and collapsed into unconsciousness, his breaths shallow and weakening. The once quiet road was now stained with blood, the air thick with dread. Hung lay motionless, his face pale, his hair sticky with blood that showed no sign of stopping. Once they were sure he had fallen, the smugglers dispersed into the twilight, leaving behind a chilling emptiness. Not long after, a young woman appeared at the top of the slope. On her shoulder hung a bamboo basket full of fresh vegetables from her garden. Her steps were light at first, carried by the evening breeze, but suddenly froze when her eyes met the sight before her. Shock coursed through her body, her heart seemed to stop. A man lay sprawled across the road, blood pooling and staining the earth red. Terrified, she dropped her basket, the vegetables scattering and rolling across the dusty path. Her trembling hands pushed her forward as she fell to her knees beside him. Her voice shook as she cried out, desperate for a response. "Sir, can you hear me?" But Hung remained still, his eyes tightly shut, his breathing faint. His pale face and blood-matted hair only heightened her panic. Fear rising inside her, she glanced around, then scrambled to her feet, her voice breaking into a desperate cry for help. The sound carried down the village road, shattering the stillness of dusk. Before long, several villagers came rushing over. The village chief appeared too, his face stricken with worry at the sight. Without hesitation, he joined the girl and the others in lifting Hung, calling for transport as they hurried him to the nearest hospital. In the days that followed, while Hung lay in a deep coma, the young woman, just a passerby, became the only one keeping vigil at his bedside. With no identification on him, the village chief had no way to contact his family. In the stark, cold hospital room, only her small figure remained, bringing porridge, fetching water, adjusting his blankets and pillow. Her devotion did not come from obligation or duty, but from compassion and empathy for a man lying on the edge of life and death. After long hours of urgent surgery and emergency care, the entire team of doctors and nurses was utterly exhausted. Swift hands moved tirelessly, surgical tools clattered against each other, and the heart monitor beeped erratically, sometimes racing, sometimes slowing, all merging into a desperate race against death. In the sterile-smelling room, sweat trickled down the attending doctor's temple, but no one dared pause. A single moment of negligence could mean the man on the operating table would slip away forever. Hour after relentless hour passed until, finally, the signals on the monitor began to stabilize. The heartbeat was weak, yet steady, each number flashing on the screen a fragile proof that Hung's life had been pulled back from the edge. A collective sigh of relief filled the room, though no one smiled. They all knew the danger had only temporarily passed, ahead lay countless uncertainties. Outside, the hospital corridor was drenched in cold, white light. The echo of a nurse's footsteps stretched into the distance, blending with the squeak of a rattling gurney, adding to the heavy stillness. In the small hospital room, Hung's body was carefully placed on a white bed. His head was tightly bandaged, dark stains of blood seeping through one side. His skin was ghostly pale, lips cracked and dry, his breath as fragile as a thread dangling in midair. The kind-hearted girl sat beside him, eyes fixed on his face. Her own showed the toll of sleepless nights, strands of messy hair framed her weary features. Her small hand rested on the blanket, trembling as it clutched the edge, as though letting go would cause him to vanish forever. Fear and worry churned endlessly in her chest, her heart pounding without rest. As the first light of dawn streamed softly through the window, a miracle occurred. Hung stirred. His heavy eyelids fluttered, then slowly opened after days of darkness. Yet, instead of the warmth of recognition, his gaze held only vagueness, strange, distant, empty. He stared blankly at the lifeless white ceiling, then at the cold medical equipment beeping monotonously. At last, his eyes landed on the girl's face beside him. But in that look, there was no recognition. No surprise, no familiar name spoken. Only the bewilderment of someone lost in an unfamiliar world. The doctor stepped closer, adjusted the monitor, and studied him carefully. After a few checks, he let out a heavy sigh. His voice dropped low, deliberate, as though preparing everyone for the worst. The head injury is quite severe. It's very likely he has developed temporary amnesia. Some patients recover in weeks, some in months, and some, in years. For now, we cannot predict anything. The words fell like a stone, sinking heavily into every heart. The already quiet room grew suffocating, as though shrouded in a cold, gray fog. The kind girl was frozen, her wide eyes brimming with tears, lips trembling with unspoken words. Her body quivered slightly, hands clasped so tightly together that her knuckles turned white. In her mind, the doctor's words echoed over and over, sharp and merciless as a blade piercing her heart. Hung blinked, his eyes still hollow. He scanned the room once more, the doctor, the girl, the light spilling from the window, but nothing stirred recognition. When the doctor gently asked, "What is your name? Do you remember who you are?" His lips parted, his throat strained weakly, but no name surfaced in his mind. His memory was erased, leaving only a terrifying void. No family, no hometown, no familiar face. Not even himself. When the doctor announced Hung's temporary memory loss, the hospital immediately set standard procedures in motion, searching for documents, asking around, calling related agencies. Yet every effort ended in silence. In his shirt pocket were only a few small items, no form of identification at all. The villagers nearby had no idea who he was either, they only knew, from the village chief, that he was the man found injured and brought in the previous night. The chief tried making inquiries, but because Hung worked far from home, lived quietly, and rarely left a precise address, contacting his family seemed nearly impossible. Faced with such a situation, the kind-hearted girl, the one who had discovered and rescued him that day, felt a rising sense of responsibility she couldn't quite name. At first, she thought saving a stranger from the brink of death was enough. But as she looked at Hung lying there, motionless, pale, his head wrapped in white bandages, his eyes empty like someone who had lost his entire world, she couldn't bring herself to walk away. Her instincts told her that leaving now would haunt her forever. After many discussions, with the consent of both the doctor and the village chief, she bravely asked to take Hung to her small wooden house by the forest, the place where she lived alone. At the hospital, without family to care for him, he'll suffer too much. Let me bring him home, so I can take care of him properly, with a little warmth, she said. Her voice trembled, but her eyes shone with rare determination. From that day on, the quiet wooden house had one more inhabitant. The small kitchen was often aglow with fire, the faint scent of rice porridge blending with wood smoke and spreading through the cozy room. Every morning, at the crow of the rooster echoing from the hills, the girl was already awake. She rinsed rice, lit the fire, waited patiently for the porridge to boil, then carefully spooned it out, blowing it cool before placing it to his lips. Sometimes Hung turned his face away, eyes distant, leaving her momentarily disheartened, but she persisted. Slowly, spoon by spoon, the hot porridge disappeared. Her daily chores soon became intertwined with his presence. She gathered his soiled clothes, washed them, and hung them across a bamboo line stretched along the porch. The morning sun streamed through the leaves, drying each thread. In the afternoons, as the sun leaned west, she sat by his bed, gently removing the old bandages, disinfecting the wounds with saline, and wrapping them anew. Every time she saw the faint red seep through, her heart tightened, but her hands grew only more careful. What once were simple daily tasks now carried within them a quiet devotion, an unspoken affection. The girl had long grown used to a hard, solitary life, fending for herself day after day. But since Hung's arrival, each small act took on new meaning. Each meal, each pot of porridge, each load of laundry had a purpose beyond herself, to care for the man who had lost his memory, now more vulnerable than a child. As for Hung, he remained silent. Days slipped by with him speaking little, his vacant eyes drifting into the distance, as if searching for a fragment of memory that only blurred the more he sought it. Sometimes he sat by the window, gazing at sunlight filtering through the forest canopy, the faint scent of wildflowers carried on the wind, but no recognition stirred on his face. Yet, in fleeting moments, he would suddenly turn to her. His gaze, not quite familiar, not entirely distant, held something in between. Like a lost child clutching the only hand left to him. He followed her movements with his eyes, the way she held a spoon, the way she hung clothes, the way she bent down to check his wounds. It was as if, the moment he looked away, he would fall back into endless darkness. News of Hung's memory loss quickly spread throughout the small village. In a place where every little matter became the subject of discussion, the story of a young man suddenly forgetting who he was, and being taken in and cared for by a stranger, was like a spark in the wind, fueling endless curiosity and chatter. On the village road, by the well, at the market, groups of people gathered, whispering and shaking their heads, their eyes filled with mixed emotions. Some spoke with genuine compassion. That girl is truly kind. Alone as she is, she dares to shoulder such a heavy burden. Caring for someone so ill isn't easy at all. Others sighed, their voices heavy with pity. Poor young man, not knowing who he is now. Who knows where his future will lead? But there were also those who doubted, their eyes tinged with suspicion and curiosity. Strange, isn't it? She's just a stranger, yet she devotes herself so completely. Who knows what may happen later? The girl heard it all. Sometimes directly to her face, sometimes just snatches of conversation at the market, or in the half-curious, half-questioning glances from villagers passing by her house. Yet instead of reacting, she simply smiled quietly. A gentle smile, like a passing breeze, no excuses, no explanations. In her heart, saving a life was nothing more than natural, just as her parents had taught her since childhood. If someone is in need, lend a hand. If someone is lost, show them the way. So, when she found Hung unconscious, lying in his own blood, she didn't think twice, she simply followed her heart. And now, day after day living together under the roof of her small wooden house, she felt the bond between herself and this amnesiac man growing stronger. Each time she changed his bandages, she could see a faint trust in his eyes, as though she was the only anchor he had left. At every meal, every morning she cooked porridge, she realized she had grown accustomed to his quiet figure by the window, listening to the birdsong outside the garden. From compassion, it had slowly become attachment, and then, without her even realizing it, it had turned into habit. Night slowly descended, and the forest by the village sank into a thin veil of mist. The small wooden house, nestled among the trees, seemed lonelier than ever. Above, a few solitary stars shimmered in the sky, while the crescent moon leaned gently, spilling soft silver light across the earthen yard. The ceaseless chorus of crickets, mixed with the croaks of frogs from distant fields, formed a melancholic nocturne, making the stillness even more poignant. From time to time, a breeze drifted down from the hillside, rattling the thatched roof and carrying with it the faint scent of wildflowers into the little room. Inside the modest dwelling, a wooden bed was placed against the wall. A small oil lamp at the headboard cast a pale, flickering glow, its wavering light dancing across the darkened timber walls. Two shadows stretched long upon the surface, one lying still, one sitting quietly. One motionless, one alive, yet together they blended into a picture of serenity tinged with sorrow. There lay Hung. The once strong body was now frail, almost pitiful. His breath was steady yet labored, his face pale as if still haunted by the shadow of death. His brows twitched faintly now and then, as though trapped in a restless, formless dream. Around his head, white bandages were tightly wound, blotched with faint stains of red, making him resemble a child worn down by a long illness, fragile, vulnerable. Each time the lamp's flame flickered, his features blurred and sharpened, like a faded old painting that stirred quiet grief in the heart of anyone who looked upon him. Beside the bed sat the kind-hearted girl, her small figure wrapped in a simple brown blouse. Her hands were clasped tightly on her lap, trembling slightly as though holding back something she could not name. Her eyes followed the rise and fall of Hung's chest, filled with both worry and a tenderness that ran deep. Day after day, she had grown accustomed to this vigil, sitting silently beside a man with no memories, no name, no past. She did not know who he was or where he came from, yet her heart refused to abandon him, as though fate itself had bound her to this unexpected bond. Lowering her head, she whispered softly, her voice trembling like wind passing through leaves. "Don't worry. When you remember, I'll take you back to your family. But for now, let me care for you in their place, will you?" The words caught in her throat, her eyes glistening as tears welled. The first drop slipped slowly down her cheek, soaking into the blanket laid across Hung's chest. She quickly wiped it away, unwilling to leave a trace of weakness, yet the more she wiped, the more tears fell. In the dim glow of the oil lamp, her small silhouette wavered, at once strong and achingly fragile. Outside, the night wind sighed through the trees, as though silently bearing witness. Amid the vast stillness of earth and sky, it felt as though an invisible thread was being spun, binding together two souls once strangers. One who had forgotten everything, and one who quietly chose to shelter him. Within this humble wooden house, they now shared a breath, a silence, a wordless reliance. While far away, Hung was still drifting through his hazy days of amnesia. Back in their village, Hoai toiled tirelessly in the fields. At the break of dawn, when morning mist still lingered over the vast rice paddies, she carried her hoe and sickle out to work. Each strike of the hoe into the dew-soaked earth, each hurried swing of the sickle to gather bundles of rice, bore the sweat and effort of a small woman struggling to shoulder not only her own burdens but also those of her absent husband. Her hair was tied neatly at the nape of her neck, though a few damp strands clung to her sweat-streaked face. Sun-darkened and weary, her calloused hands spoke of hardship, yet in her eyes glimmered an endless longing. From time to time, she looked up toward the dirt road in the distance, the same road where, in past harvests, Hung would return to help her. Together they once carried rice bundles, working side by side with laughter. Now, that road stretched on beneath the morning sun, but his footsteps had been absent far too long. In Hoai's heart, her longing for her husband flowed like an unending stream. She remembered the way he led the buffalo to plow, the sound of his voice calling from the pond's edge, even the humble dinners they shared, simple meals, yet warm with love. The more she remembered, the tighter her chest ached. Worry weighed heavily. Why had there been no word from him all this time? Where was he? Was he safe? Little did Hoai know that in a distant, unfamiliar place, the husband she longed for was living a life completely changed. Hung, once the strong, steadfast pillar of the family, was now like a lost child, unable to recall who he was, living in confusion and uncertainty. And, in a cruel twist of fate, he was being tenderly cared for by a stranger, a young woman who had unknowingly become his only source of comfort during this dark and uncertain time. Will the fragments of Hung's lost memories slowly begin to return to his mind? The once strong man, now a stranger to his own life, will he ever regain his name, his homeland, and the wife who waits faithfully for him back in their village? And the kind-hearted girl, the one who has cared for him day by day, through every meal and every restless night, will she keep her promise to bring him back to his family? Or will her closeness and devotion unknowingly weave a new thread of affection, binding both of their hearts together? And when Hoai, the hard-working, faithful wife, discovers the truth that her husband is being cared for by another woman, how will she face it? Will it be longing, trust, or tears of sorrow that speak louder? All of this will be revealed in the next episode. Stay tuned to witness the unexpected turning point that lies ahead.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Hôm nay thì mình tiếp tục đưa đến với mọi người câu chuyện của mẹ đơn thân Lý Hoài Ca và cảnh sát Hùng. Mọi người thân mến, thì hiện tại thì mình vẫn đang làm, và hiện tại bây giờ mình mới hoàn thành phần nội dung truyện và âm thanh thôi, và mình cũng chưa có edit hình ảnh. Đây mình vừa mới hoàn thành phần âm thanh, nên là một tí nữa thì có thể là mình mới có thể làm xong video được, và mình vẫn đang cố gắng để có thể hoàn thành video sớm nhất có thể á mọi người. Và thì mình đang cố gắng lên video vào khoảng lúc hôm nay thì mình đang dự định là sẽ lên video sớm hơn mọi khi thì mình sẽ lên vào 6 giờ tối. Thì hôm nay mình đang tính là sẽ lên vào lúc khoảng 5 giờ rưỡi đến 5 giờ rưỡi tối. Và mình cũng đang hy vọng là mình sẽ có thể hoàn thành trước dự định. Và mọi người ơi, nhớ đón xem video ở trên kênh của mình nhé. Nhớ đăng ký kênh và chuông thông báo lên nhá. Tạm biệt.